Welcome to Wisdom
TV
with Dan
and Lee.
And today we're going to be talking about Proverbs again, and we're going to be going through the principles of Proverbs. And today is what date, Miss Lee?
Today is the 12th. Yeah, that's right. Today's
That's why
the 12th.
we're reading the 12th proverb.
That's
I thought you'd be right on
right.
top of that. So I guess I'll give you a... But
oh no.
Proverbs chapter 12 has a lot of really interesting things in it that have to do with current things that are happening today. Proverbs is so up to date. As you read it, it's like reading the newspaper every day.
Yes, it is. It's just so current. It's amazing to you.
So, Miss Lee, why don't you begin, and we'll read and we'll talk and we'll see what develops.
Okay, Proverbs 12:1. Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid.
Stupid? The Bible calls somebody stupid?
That's what this version says.
Boy, that's not very
politically correct, is it?
politically correct, or it's
Call
not very
someone
kind
stupid.
either.
No,
So the Bible's not kind.
but truthful.
Well, actually, it is kind, because in another proverb it tells you the person who tells you the truth really loves you and cares
That's
about
right.
you. But how does that apply? What is that? Read that again. What does it say?
Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid.
Well, you know, that really brings to my mind the riots in London today.
They have been in the news this week, that's for sure.
Because it is amazing that they have recordings of people on the street that just don't care about anything except it's fun to be out here rioting.
They take things that it's not like they need things like bread or milk. They're taking TVs and a whole carton of iPhones. No single person needs a carton of iPhones. And just things that are not the daily necessities. It's excesses. And just because it belongs to someone else, they think that they should have it.
Well, today, actually, in the news, there's a Laura Johnson, who's 19 years old, that got caught stealing a 5,000 pounds worth of electronic goods, who's a millionairess.
Yeah, you got to figure that. She could buy it if she wanted.
She could buy
it.
everything. So why is she out there rioting?
That's a good
They
question.
show a picture of her beautiful gated mansion that she lives in. Or another university student, Natasha Reed, 24 years old, sold 300 pounds of TVs. And she's a university graduate.
You'd think she'd know better.
You have another guy, Staffen Howell, I think, is clutching his violin. He's out there in the riots. And 17-year-olds that are just out there rioting. It's because they don't want to have what this is.
Knowledge or correction.
They don't want knowledge or correction.
I saw pictures of 9, 10, 11-year-old boys carrying bottles of vodka and wine. Well, obviously, they didn't need that.
Well, maybe they do.
Maybe they do.
Maybe
To
they're
sell
addicted. Yeah, they
Or
can
they're
sell it or
alcoholics
whatever.
at that young
But
age.
again, it's wisdom is to want correction, and when you don't seek correction, you can actually end up in riots. Now, our modern world says, well, if they don't want correction, you don't correct them more. You give them a house to live in, and you give them food, and you give them housing, and you know they don't have to work their whole lives, and we'll just sustain them. Well, the problem is in London, it's all falling apart because they're running out of money, and the culture is crumbling, just like this famous building in London is
The 150-year-old furniture store that belongs to a family.
Yeah.
And I know one of the things that one of the rioters said was, well, we're going to show the rich and the police that we can do whatever we want to do.
And those who own businesses. They viewed the
Yeah.
rich as anyone who owned anything.
When actually they're just stealing from their neighbor who lives above the shop in the apartment next to them. And it's totally senseless and selfish.
You know, it's interesting. This week we've been reading, you and I both been reading a lot of articles, and they all have all these secular answers.
Yep.
But in reality, what we talked about last week, the beginning of wisdom is to know the Lord and to fear the Lord. And what's interesting in England, it has become one of the most secular cultures. Even though they have the Church of England as the official established religion, even the church has become secular. The whole culture has become secular. Secular meaning excluding God from your thinking in many, many areas, except for this personal spiritual life.
Well, you look at the next person who's supposed to be the king, Charles, and he also, the monarchy is the head of the church. Isn't that correct? They still are?
Yeah.
And everybody just thinks he's wacky. He
He's
does
a
some
fool.
really crazy, inconsistent things with what he says.
So when a culture follows secularism like Europe is following, it crumbles and is burned even by the youth of its culture.
To the very
Destruction.
people who have free housing, free education, free health care,
So
their
stuff
food.
isn't the answer.
It's not
this
the answer.
riot clearly shows.
Yeah.
Giving your kids stuff. The millionaires had lots of stuff.
And
Even the poor kids had housing and color TVs and all the things of life, food, but they didn't have the fear of the Lord. And that's the beginning of wisdom.
that's right.
So read us another verse. Let's just go on.
Okay, verse 2 says, "A good man obtains favor from the Lord, but a man of wicked intentions, he," meaning the Lord, "will condemn."
How does that apply today? What's happened this week that's made that interesting?
Give me a clue here.
I don't have any clues. I'm just asking you.
A good man obtains favor from the Lord. Well, I'm just thinking because the debates are in our mind last night.
Oh, that's it. The debates would be
Yeah.
interesting, wouldn't it? Because someone was attacked, even though she's not a man.
Yeah.
But, we could apply this. She was attacked.
Well, I think that one thing we need to make clear to maybe someone who's listening and doesn't understand, that when the Bible talks about a good man obtains favor, it's mankind. It's not just men. It's men and women.
So when it's talking about women, it's womankind?
It would be specifically, yeah, you're right. You're catching me here, aren't you? The principles
there's a principle
obtain to men and women.
There's a principle within the principle.
Yes.
In the English language, you use word man. It could be specifically to a man.
It could be.
For instance, when it's talking of a man that has a good wife, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, it's not a woman that has a good wife.
It's not a woman who has a good wife.
A man.
So it's understanding how language really works, and the English language really has some ways of working.
And this is kind of a side note, but people use that to take things out of the Bible to make it mean what they want it to mean, or make it
So if you want to
say-
be stupid, you can.
You can.
Isn't
yeah,
that what
that's
that
right.
first verse said?
Yeah, it's easy to
Read
be
that
stupid.
first verse again. That was very interesting, because it says you become stupid if you don't want to understand.
If you hate correction, you're stupid.
If you hate correction, if you don't want to understand what someone is saying, if you want to take your ideas and put them in other people's language and force them to believe what you are thinking, then you become stupid.
That's right.
That's really what postmodernism does
Yeah.
with language and the arts. But read that next verse you're talking.
A
Read it
good
again.
man obtains favor from the Lord, but a man of wicked intentions he will condemn.
And how did that apply to the debate last night? I thought that was interesting how you thought of this.
I'm thinking of Michelle Bachmann,
Oh, yeah.
who is trying to live a Christian life and run for president, which is probably not an easy thing. And
Well, no woman has ever done it successfully.
people have run, but women
Well,
have
actually,
run.
is there a woman that's run for president?
Well, not president, I guess. No, I was
I
thinking
think she is the first
of,
woman to declare herself
be.
to run
That
for
could be.
president.
I
There
was-
was a woman in the Democratic Party
well,
that ran
Hillary
for vice
tried to run.
president.
Hillary tried
That's
to run.
true. Hillary tried to run for president, so she's not the first.
Yeah.
But Hillary would never be submissive to her husband.
No, that's the difference.
And
And they tried to use that.
so, because Hillary is a feminist.
That's right.
So if Hillary, a feminist, doesn't believe in being submissive.
They never would have asked her that question. They
Because-
would not have asked Hillary that question.
Because she would never believe in submission.
Right.
She only believes in ruling over,
Mhm.
because she's really anarchical.
Yeah, she is.
She's really Machiavellian tyrant, and we're going to talk about that a little more later.
But getting back to Michelle
Michelle
Bachmann,
Bachmann.
she has a good marriage, and I think she answered it pretty well last night. And it's as we discussed in listening to her, it's the vision of priority of the job and her marriage. And yes, of course, if you have a good marriage, you will go to your spouse, whether it's your husband or your wife, for counsel.
Why?
Because you
don't you have
trust
stupid
them.
wives and stupid husbands?
Well, there are, yeah, but hopefully, you don't. But if you trust them, if there's trust and fidelity there, and a history of wisdom and trying to understand and learn, then you're going to trust.
That's why who you're married to, who you choose to marry,
it matters.
Really matters.
It matters.
A good example of that is this woman, Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin has a really neat husband. Actually, Greta Van Susteren calls him the first dude.
The first dude.
He's
like
such an amazing.
I like that.
And he's very much in charge of his family, but Sarah Palin was governor.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, Sarah Palin has a child that, what was her name? I'm blanking. The teenager.
Bristol.
Bristol, yeah, Bristol, who decided to go out and have sexual activity before marriage. And I really admire Sarah Palin because she didn't throw her away. She dealt with her but Bristol has been foolish.
Yeah.
In her life. And her first dude is now attacking her and the Palin family. So who she hung out with as a teenager really mattered because it's haunting her. The father of her child is attacking and haunting her family now.
And it's hard for kids to think that their parents know anything. They never think their parents know anything till maybe they're like 30s to 40s. Then they go, oh, maybe my parents know something. But when they're teenagers, you have to be helpful in guiding their relationships so that they don't wind up with a stupid person.
Because they're stupid. Well, they're not stupid. You know, they can have some wisdom, but they don't have enough to make really good choices. There's the world of flesh and the devil, and they're all attacking the teenagers, and the flesh is a big problem because the culture is encouraging fleshly desires, and sexual activity is very heavy in culture.
Yeah.
So we have these two women that literally in the political realm, Michelle Bachmann and Sarah Palin, that would be asked the question, how can you be submissive to your husband and still be president?
And yet, may I bring up
they would never
else?
ask that to a feminist that's running for the president.
And they didn't ask that to the men. And there was
Isn't
obviously one man there who was submissive to his wife.
Who was that?
He's a gray-haired man, and I believe his name is Newt Gingrich.
Oh, he was submissive to his wife?
Well, yes, because during the middle of his campaign, she decided she wanted to take a vacation, and he just took off.
Oh, and it got him in lots of trouble. That was actually the question. Why did all your staff leave? Because he was submissive to his wife and took off for a vacation. And that wasn't very wise for him to do.
And so I wonder why the panel didn't ask him that, or any other man.
Well, they did ask him a really aggressive question. In the debate, which was about why did all of his staff leave. And I think Newt Gingrich became actually the hero of the debate because he said, why are you asking me stupid questions? He came back at the press because he knew it had nothing to do with the day. It was a gotcha. Why are you asking me gotcha questions when we got real problems in the world? And that's what they did to actually Newt Gingrich, Sarah Palin. Oh, she wasn't in the debate, but they would have asked her. And Michelle Bachmann.
She was one of the hovering people that they talked about.
Yeah, she was silently there the whole time.
Rick Perry were the hovering, non-working debaters.
They weren't really present, but,
their presence was there.
Their presence was there.
Yeah.
Okay. So this issue, I think of